He walked into an office, a place he believed was safe. A few hours later, Nguyen Xuan Dat never walked out again. This is the case that shook Vietnam, a murder hidden behind a locked door, an official arrested, and a man whose past was almost as mysterious as his final moments. But what really happened inside that building in Lang Son? Let's take a closer look, because the deeper investigators looked, the stranger this case became. A victim who vanished from his hometown for years, a suspect who held a government position, and clues that raised more questions than answers. Our story begins in Lang Son, Vietnam. On January 25, 2025, Nguyen Xuan Dat, a man born in 1989, originally from Hung Yen, arrived at the office of the market management team. No. 4. Inside. That office was Doan Van Sang, a former deputy team leader. Someone Dat had known through social media since around 2020. What happened next is still under investigation. But according to official police reports, an altercation occurred inside the office and Dat did not survive. When officers began searching the scene, they found what appeared to be signs of a struggle. In efforts to cover it up, Doan Van Sang was later arrested and charged with murder, along with allegations of attempting to destroy or conceal evidence. But this is where the case becomes even more complicated. When investigators tried to confirm Dat's background, they discovered that he had been missing from his hometown for years. Neighbors and local records confirmed he had practically disappeared from Hung Yen long before the incident. So who exactly was Nguyen Xuan Dat in the years before his death? And why did he go to that office on that particular day? Those are questions the public is still asking. Police statements confirmed several key points. Dat and Sang had known each other through social media. Dat voluntarily came to the office before he died. Sang is accused of killing Dat inside the office. There were attempts to hide or destroy evidence after the incident. Many files and documents circulating online are unverified and officially warned against by authorities. As of now, the case remains under active investigation. No court verdict has been issued, and every new development is carefully checked due to the sensitive nature of the case. But perhaps the biggest mystery of all is this. Why did two men, connected only through the internet, end up together in an empty government office, with one of them never leaving alive? This is the Lang Son murder mystery, a case that has gripped the country, raised questions about identity, power, the hidden connections between two men whose paths crossed with tragic consequences. As the investigation continues, we may learn the truth behind what happened that day, and why. Until then, this remains one of Vietnam's most unsettling modern cases, a reminder that sometimes the stories that unfold behind closed doors are more chilling than anything fiction could create. He entered the building alone. It was a simple, quiet government office on an ordinary day in Lang Son, Vietnam. A place where administrative work took place, where documents were processed, where officials came and went without much attention. But on January 25, 2025, something happened behind those walls, something so serious, so unexpected, that a routine visit turned into one of the most widely discussed criminal investigations in modern Vietnam. The man who walked into that office was Nguyen Xuan Dat, a 35-year-old from Isingan, and according to official reports, he never walked out again. This is the beginning of the Lang Son murder mystery, a case that raised questions far beyond a single incident. Questions about identity, disappearance, power, trust, and what truly happened inside a locked office. But before we examine the police findings, and before we explore the layers of this complex investigation, we need to step back and ask the first essential question: who was Nguyen Xuan Dat? And how did he become entangled in a chain of events that led to one of the most unsettling crime stories in the country? If you travel to Tian Akin Commune in Akin province, you'll find quiet streets, local markets, and a community where most families have known each other for decades. It's the kind of place where people rarely disappear, where neighbors notice when someone hasn't been around, where absences are remembered. According to local authorities and residents, Nguyen Xuan Dat left home many years ago. He stopped appearing in community activities, stopped registering temporary residence, and reportedly maintained little contact with his hometown. For years, he simply wasn't there. He wasn't reported missing. He wasn't involved in local conflicts, just wasn't present. This alone created complications for investigators later, because when a person has been disconnected from their hometown for such a long time, even basic information becomes harder to verify. Where did he live? Who did he spend time with? What job did he hold? Why did he leave? These questions didn't have easy answers. But one thing investigators established is this. At some point during the years he lived away from his hometown, Dat connected online. With a government official in Lang Son, their communication appears to have stretched back to around 2020. This connection would eventually lead Dat to travel voluntarily to the office where he took his final steps. Lang Son is a border province, known for trade activity, markets, and cross-border movement. Inside the province operates the market management team No. 4. It's an office responsible for supervising commercial activities. On January 25, 2025, Dat entered this office. According to investigators and official statements, he was not forced to go there. He was not kidnapped. He was not brought against his will. He walked in on his own. Inside the office that day was a senior official, someone he had known through online communication for several years. What exactly happened during their meeting remains part of the confidential investigative process. But what has been publicly confirmed is this. An altercation occurred inside the office. Only one man survived the encounter. The official inside the office became the primary suspect. The locked space, the lack of witnesses, and the fact that both men had known each other beforehand created a deeply complicated scenario for investigators. The office, once a simple workplace, was now a crime scene. When police responded to information about a possible incident inside the building, they found what appeared to be signs of violence. According to official reports, there were also indicators that someone had attempted to conceal evidence, alter the scene, or remove traces of what happened. These details were not fully disclosed to the public, but they were confirmed at a level serious enough for investigators to move quickly, and they did. By late January, authorities had taken the official into custody as the primary suspect in what they classified as a homicide case. This action alone, the arrest of a government official, sent shockwaves through the community. The public demanded answers. Social media erupted with theories. Speculation spread faster than facts, and suddenly something else happened, something that would complicate everything even further. A large collection of unverified documents appeared online claiming to reveal details about the case. Investigators issued warnings almost immediately. The files were not authenticated. The accuracy was unknown. Sharing them could mislead the public and even obstruct the investigation. In other words, not everything on the internet should be trusted, but the public didn't slow down. If anything, the appearance of these mystery files increased curiosity. And yet, investigators stayed firm. Their focus was on facts, not rumors. Up to this point in the investigation, several details have been made. It's clear to one. Dat and the official had known each other online. Their relationship was not random. 2. Dat arrived voluntarily at the office on the day of the incident. There was no sign of forced entry or kidnapping. 3. An act of violence occurred. It's inside the office. Police classified it as homicide, for there were attempts to conceal or alter evidence. This sharply increases the seriousness of the case.
Phase 2. The arrival in Lang Son. Whether he stayed overnight or travelled the same day has not been fully revealed by authorities. But one detail stands out. He travelled alone. For investigators, a lone traveller simplifies some questions and complicates others. Simplifies, there are fewer immediate suspects.
5. The suspect was arrested and remains under investigation. 6. No final verdict has been reached. Vietnamese law requires presumption of innocence till court judgment. These are the only facts investigators have confirmed publicly. Everything else rumors, leaked files. Unverified statements remains outside what should be considered reliable. This is important for one simple reason. A true crime documentary should follow truth, not speculation. Cases involving civilians are tragic. Cases involving officials can become national conversations. But this case became something more, a social phenomenon. Why? Because it contained three explosive elements. 1. A victim whose past was unclear. Man who left his hometown for years, returning only through tragedy. Every mystery begins with a missing piece. 2. A suspect in a position of authority. Whenever a government official is arrested, public attention intensifies. People ask hard questions. How could this happen inside an office? Was there a motive? Were there signs beforehand? 3. The sudden spread of online documents. This turned a criminal case into a viral sensation. But viral does not mean accurate. And investigators warned the public multiple times not to be misled by unofficial material. Still, people wanted answers. They wanted explanations. They wanted the truth. At this stage of the investigation, several key questions remain unanswered. What was the true nature of the relationship between Dat and the official? Friendship? Debt? Conflict? Professional connection? Police have not disclosed the details. Why did Dat travel to Lang Son that day? Was it a planned meeting? Was there an argument? Were there financial or personal dealings? What exactly happened? Inside the room, only 2 people were present. One did not survive. The other is under investigation. Why was there an attempt to conceal the evidence? This raises the severity of the case and indicates potential panic or intent. Why was Dat absent from his hometown for so many years? Could past events matter? Or were his years away irrelevant to the incident? Will the investigation reveal new motives or connections? Time will tell. But as of now, investigators have not released any motive. These questions form the foundation of the mystery, and they are why this case captured national attention in criminal investigations. Facts often move slowly. Rumors move fast. This case became an example of that imbalance. As soon as news broke, videos appeared online. Dozens of accounts reposted theories. Some people claimed to have inside information. Others created compilations of unverified files. But the truth is simple. Only official statements from investigators carry legal and factual validity. Everything else is noise. And in a documentary-style examination like this, we focus on the signal, not the noise. But the noise matters in one way. It reflects the intensity of public curiosity. People were not just asking what happened. They were asking, how could this happen? Is there something we're not being told? Why did the investigators warn about false documents? What does this say about trust and power? These are not just crime questions. Are social questions, and they matter. When a case becomes highly publicized, investigators face enormous pressure. Every action is watched. Every announcement is analyzed. Every detail is questioned. In this case, authorities responded by releasing verified information, cautiously warning the public against misinformation grant, the victim's background establishing the suspects, position and role, clarifying which materials were official, avoiding premature conclusions. This careful approach shows that the case is treated with serious legal and social weight. But it also slows things down because thorough investigations require time, especially when public attention is intense. Still, one thing is clear. Authorities made it known that they intend to handle the case transparently. Within the boundaries of Vietnamese law, when a crime occurs behind a locked office door, the walls cannot speak, the furniture cannot testify. And there are only 2 places investigators can look: into the past and into the evidence that remains. In many modern crimes, the first clues are not found at the physical scene, but in the digital world: phones, messages, online accounts, social media traces. According to official statements, Dat and the official involved had known each other through online communication for several years, possibly as far back as 2020. This is important for several reasons. It confirms the meeting was not random. Two strangers do not cross paths by chance inside a government office on a quiet day. It establishes a prior relationship investigators now had to examine. The nature of their communication, the tone of their messages, the frequency, any financial or personal ties, whether any conflict appeared, provides a trail that cannot be erased. Deleted messages often leave metadata. Even deactivated accounts leave logs. Even conversations on apps leave digital residue. In Vietnam, like many countries, digital forensics teams are trained to recover. Phone call records text, messenger, data Zalo, conversations, mail, logs IP address. Activity device login times, each small piece may not reveal much. Together, they form a picture investigators needed in order to answer the same question the public was asking. Why were these two men connected? Reconstructing the final 48 hours of a person's life is one of the most delicate tasks in criminal investigation. For Nguyen Xuan Dat, the timeline consisted of 3 essential phases. Phase 1, the decision to travel. Investigators confirmed that Dat traveled to Lang Son voluntarily. There was no sign of coercion. This means one of two things. He had planned to meet someone, he expected something important to occur. The reason for the visit remains undisclosed. But digital forensics likely hold clues. This step, the decision to travel, is where most true crime stories begin to tighten their threads.
Complicates. There is no companion who can describe his intentions, mood, or expectations. This increases reliance on CCTV footage, transportation logs, phone data, hotel check-ins, if any, witnesses at nearby locations. Vietnamese investigators commonly cross-reference multiple sources to reconstruct movement. Toll booth scans, license plate recognition, security cameras in public buildings, phone tower pings. Even if a person intentionally avoids being seen, their digital signals rarely disappear. Phase 3. Entering the office. The final moment captured clearly is this. He walked in. Not dragged, not forced, not accompanied. This fact alone shapes the trajectory of the entire case. Investigators now had a clear anchor point. The last place Dat was seen alive. But what happened next remains the central mystery, and would require forensic investigation to reveal. A crime scene is a silent witness, but silence does not mean emptiness. Everything inside the room, from the position of a chair, to the direction of a stain, to the angle of a fallen item, has meaning. Vietnamese forensic teams follow globally aligned procedures. 1. Securing the scene, stopping contamination, restricting access. 2. Photographing and mapping, capturing every inch before moving anything. 3. Collecting biological evidence, blood traces, hair, skin cells, fiber transfer. 4. Fingerprints and smudges, patterns that indicate movement or struggle. 5. Tool mark analysis, if any object was used or broken. 6. Environmental indicators, temperature, ventilation, item displacement. 7. Timeline of events, blood drying stages, dust disturbance, footprint overlay. Although the exact forensic findings were not publicly released, as is standard in ongoing criminal investigations, authorities confirmed enough to classify the event as a homicide. And there was something else. Signs of attempted concealment or evidence destruction. This raised the severity of the case dramatically. Attempting to modify a crime scene is not only an additional criminal offence, it also indicates fear, panic, or motive. For investigators, this was not just a crime, it had become a puzzle with layers. When an ordinary citizen becomes a suspect, the burden of investigation is heavy. When a government official becomes a suspect, the burden intensifies tenfold. The suspect, a senior member of Market Management Team Number 4, held a position of authority. Vietnamese law treats all citizens equally before the law, but public perception is another matter. A crime connected to an official generates more public attention, more pressure on investigators, higher expectations of transparency, deeper scrutiny of motive, greater responsibility in communication. This is why the authorities in this case released structured updates, avoided speculation, confirmed only verified facts, warned the public about misinformation, emphasized due legal process. A murder case is already sensitive. A murder case involving an official becomes a national spotlight, and a murder case surrounded by leaked documents becomes a social storm. Shortly after the case became public, unverified documents spread online. Dozens of pages claiming to reveal details about the victim, the suspect, the motive, and even payment records. Investigators did something rare in modern Vietnamese criminal cases. They publicly urged people not to share or trust the files. Why? Because the documents were not confirmed, their origin was unclear, they may contain fabricated elements. Sharing them could obstruct investigation. They could wrongly influence public opinion. They could harm the families involved. It is easy to underestimate how dangerous misinformation can be in a criminal case. Unverified files create noise. Noise distorts perception. Distortion pressures investigators. Pressure forces rushed judgments. And rushed judgments increase the risk of errors. In true crime storytelling, we often look at misinformation as something that happens after a case. But in modern digital environments, misinformation often appears during the investigation and becomes a visible part of the case itself. The Lang Son murder mystery is a clear example of this phenomenon. After the incident, police in Hun Yin confirmed a detail that surprised many. Nguyen Xuan Dat had been absent from his hometown for years. He wasn't officially missing. He simply wasn't present. This raised delicate questions. Where had he been living? What was he doing? Who were his companions in recent years? What relationships or conflicts existed? Did he have stable employment? Was he involved in any other matters? Investigators approached his background carefully to avoid assumptions. But in homicide investigations, the victim's past can be as significant as the suspect's. It may establish motive. It may explain why the meeting occurred. It may reveal past disputes. It may point to external connections. It may contextualize behavior. The fact that Dat disappeared from his hometown, but later appeared at a government office in another province, makes the case more complex. Each gap in his timeline becomes a potential piece of evidence. When two people communicate online for years before meeting in a private office, investigators consider psychological dimensions. Did one party trust the other? Did one feel threatened? Was there expectation of benefit? Was there misunderstanding? Was the meeting planned peacefully? Was conflict unexpected or anticipated? These are not just questions of motive. They are questions of human behavior. In many homicide cases, violence emerges not from long-term hatred, but from sudden provocation, unexpected confrontation, emotional escalation, miscommunication, fear or panic, perceived betrayal. Without disclosed details of the altercation, we cannot speculate about what occurred. But investigators must reconstruct tone of messages, financial or personal exchanges, emotional patterns, last-minute calls, Any sign of stress or urgency. Human behavior always leaves traces, digital or emotional. To understand this case fully, we must understand how Vietnam investigates a homicide. Vietnamese criminal procedure follows three main stages. Opening the case. Authorities must determine whether a crime occurred. In this case, evidence at the scene met the threshold. Opening the suspect file. Once authorities believe a specific person may be responsible, they file charges. The suspect in this case was arrested shortly afterward. Investigation. This stage can last weeks or months and includes forensic analysis, digital evidence review, witness interviews, reconstruction of timeline, psychological evaluation, legal examination, autopsy findings. During investigation, the suspect is presumed innocent. Authorities cannot release sensitive details. Only confirmed facts are made public. This explains why. Motive is not yet disclosed. Forensic details are not shared. Many aspects remain confidential. A homicide investigation is not a movie. It is a slow, careful, methodical process. And in cases with unusual circumstances, the process becomes even slower because every misstep can change the outcome. In older true crime cases, public opinion moved slowly. People heard through newspapers, TV, or word of mouth. But today, a rumor can travel nationwide in minutes. This case is a perfect example. TikTok videos, Facebook live streams, YouTube commentary, forums, message groups, leaked documents, reaction channels, speculation-based content, all appeared within days. Many creators discussed the case without relying on official information. Some accused, some defended, some exaggerated, some fabricated. Investigators had to step in and remind the public about legal responsibility when sharing false or harmful information. For the families involved, this digital storm made grief even heavier. For investigators, it made accuracy even more crucial. For society, it raised a new question. How do we balance curiosity with responsibility in the age of viral true crime? When a crime involves an official, even small gaps in information generate large waves of speculation. People expect explanations, clarity, accountability, detailed disclosures. But legal systems cannot release details prematurely. This creates a tension. The public wants answers. Investigators must protect the integrity of the case. In the Nguyen Xuan case, this tension led to two major challenges. Challenge 1. Correcting misinformation. Authorities had to clarify that certain viral documents were unverified, that details were being misreported, that speculation could harm due process. Challenge 2. Maintaining investigative confidentiality. Even when the public demanded specifics, investigators could only release the fact of the homicide, the arrest of the suspect, the identity confirmation of the victim, warnings about misinformation, no further details. This balance is delicate. Too much disclosure, the case collapses. Too little disclosure, public mistrust grows. While every homicide is unique, investigators often compare patterns to past cases. This helps determine: is the event spontaneous or premeditated? Is the motive personal, financial, or emotional? Are there similarities to previous incidents? Were there warnings or red flags? Many cases involving private meetings between acquaintances are connected to financial disagreements, unresolved disputes, expectations not met, relationship breakdowns, misunderstandings escalating into violence. But without disclosed information, none of these can be assumed here. Still, understanding these patterns helps place the Lang Son case in context. It shows why investigators focused so heavily on the digital communication history between the victim and the suspect. Every murder investigation has a center of gravity, a single question so powerful that everything else seems to orbit around it. In the Lang Son case, that question was not how the crime occurred. The forensic signs inside the office already answered that. It was not when it happened. The timeline was clear. It was not even where it took place. The office itself became a silent witness. The question that pulled at the edges of this case, that captured attention across the country, that kept investigators sifting meticulously through digital traces and interviews, was this. Why? What would drive two men, connected online for years, to meet privately in a government office, only for the encounter to end in violence? The search for motive is where we begin our final chapter. A chapter shaped not by speculation, but by the slow, deliberate logic of real-world investigation. In Vietnamese criminal law, motive is not simply a detail. It is a pillar that supports the entire legal process. Knowing why something happened can help determine the severity of charges, whether the act was spontaneous or premeditated, whether emotional provocation was involved, whether financial or personal disputes played a role, whether others may be connected, whether the suspect poses ongoing risk, and what sentencing guidelines apply. But motive is also the part of an investigation that requires the most time, patience, and cross-verification. Unlike fingerprints or blood patterns, motive leaves no physical trace. It must be reconstructed from fragments. Messages, call logs, financial records, witness statements, past interactions, psychological assessments. In the Lang Son case, police did not publicly disclose a motive, a sign that investigators were either 1. Still verifying competing possibilities, or 2. Protecting confidential aspects that could affect legal proceedings, or 3. Waiting for forensic and digital analysis to complete. Vietnamese investigators typically reveal motive only when it is fully established and legally supported. Until then, silence is not avoidance, it is caution. While we cannot guess the motive, we can explore the standard investigative paths that authorities likely examined. These are the same paths used in every homicide case, regardless of who is involved. Personal relationship analysis. Because the two men communicated online for years, investigators would focus on tone of conversations, changes in emotional dynamics, any sign of tension or disagreement, expectations regarding the meeting, previous in-person encounters. A long-term online connection can foster trust or resentment. Both possibilities are investigated. Financial or transactional motives. Investigators may examine bank transfers, loan agreements, business dealings, shared financial interests, debts, or promised exchanges. Financial stress or disagreement is a recurring factor in modern disputes. Social or psychological pressure. In many interpersonal cases, motive springs from unmet expectations, betrayal, emotional conflict, escalating argument, perceived insult, misunderstandings, sudden anger, fear or panic. These factors do not imply anything specific in this case, but they represent common investigative frameworks. Third-party influences. Authorities often examine whether other individuals influenced the meeting. External conflicts existed. Anyone encouraged or pressured either party. Online interactions involved more than two people. Even subtle external connections may carry weight. The victim's missing years. With Dat absent from his hometown for a long period, investigators would also consider his activities during that time, possible new relationships, possible disputes, sudden changes in behavior, travel patterns. These factors may or may not be relevant, but they must be examined objectively. The suspect's psychological state. Authorities often request evaluations to determine stress levels, recent workload, emotional strain. Personal conflicts, medical or psychological issues. Again, this is standard practice, not an implication. When seen together, these investigative paths demonstrate one truth. Motive is not a guess. It is a construction built from evidence. And until that construction is complete, the public must rely on verified facts, not assumptions. In the 2020s, a homicide investigation is no longer centered solely on physical evidence. Digital footprints often provide the clearest timeline. Forensic teams may examine phone data, call history, SMS, app usage, deleted files, last known locations, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connections, patterns of silence or unusual activity. Social media logs, Facebook messages, Zalo chats, messenger history, post history, friend lists, blocked or restricted accounts. Computer or laptop activity, browsing records, notes, email drafts, recovered fragments from deleted partitions. CCTV and public camera networks. Vietnam's urban areas often have street cameras, building entry logs, hallway footage, lobby cameras, parking lot records. If Dat traveled through multiple checkpoints or tolls, automated systems may have logged timestamps, license plates, travel routes. Financial transactions, ATM withdrawals, banking app access, e-wallet activity. These digital traces can reveal intent, preparation, emotional state, expectations, planned outcomes. Digital evidence does not replace witness testimony, but in cases with few witnesses, it becomes essential. When a crime occurs in a public area, multiple perspectives help reconstruct truth. But in this case, there were no eyewitnesses. The room was enclosed. Only 2 people were present. One of them died. The other became the suspect. This makes reconstruction exceptionally difficult. Investigators must rely on the physical condition of the room, the position of objects, signs of struggle, biological markers, the suspect's statement, autopsy findings, timeline analysis. Every small detail matters. Even the angle of a knocked-over chair can determine whether the confrontation began suddenly or gradually. Even the distance between objects can indicate whether there was movement or restraint. Even the pattern of blood traces can distinguish accident from intent. True forensic analysis is not dramatic. It is painstaking. It is slow. It is often invisible to the public. But it is the foundation of justice. Crime stories often focus on the what and how. But beneath every case lies a quiet human tragedy that cannot be measured in legal terms. For the victim's family, the news of Dat's death was not merely shocking. It was disorienting. A person who had lived away for years, whose life path had diverged from his hometown, suddenly re-entered public awareness through the hardest possible way. For the suspect's family, the experience is equally painful. Watching someone they know and trust become the center of a national investigator. For both families, the weight of public attention adds a secondary layer of suffering. And yet, in true crime storytelling, the human aspect often gets overshadowed by mystery. This documentary, however, recognizes that behind every headline are lives forever changed. When a case becomes viral, content creators face a moral decision. Should they repeat every rumor for views? Should they dramatize events that are still under investigation? Should they publish unverified files? Should they declare motive or guilt before the court does? Ethical true crime storytelling requires restraint. It requires returning again and again to verified facts and transparent sources. In this documentary, we have adhered to 3 principles. Do not speculate. Do not accuse. Do not conclude prematurely. This protects the integrity of the investigation, the rights of those involved, and the safety of creators and platforms. Misinformation is not merely incorrect, it is harmful. And in a case like the Lang Son incident, harm can echo across families, institutions, and communities. This case did more than reveal a single tragedy. It exposed deeper societal issues, the power of digital relationships. 2 men who met online ended up meeting offline, with consequences that neither could have fully foreseen. Digital relationships carry emotional and psychological weight that society is still learning to navigate. The fragility of trust in institutions when an official is arrested. Communities ask, how could this happen here? Were there early signs? Can such tragedies be prevented? This case invites reflection on accountability and transparency. The influence of viral misinformation. The spread of unverified documents illustrates a modern reality. People often trust what is shareable, not what is accurate. This case became a mirror reflecting how easily society can be misled when information is consumed without caution. The tension between privacy and public curiosity. A murder investigation must protect confidentiality. But digital culture demands instant answers. The clash between these forces creates pressure on investigators, families, and media. Vietnamese investigators follow a structured path before transferring a case to prosecutors. They must verify motive, confirm timeline, cross-check digital evidence, complete forensic analysis, investigate all connections, ensure no third-party involvement, gather statements, examine inconsistencies, build a legally solid report. Once completed, the case moves to procuracy court. Only then does the legal system deliver a verdict, a sentence, and an official narrative of events. Until that moment, all interpretations, including this documentary, must remain open-ended. Even with extensive investigation, several questions remain unanswered to the public. What was said during the final meeting? How did the altercation begin? What was the intention of each person that day? What was the emotional state of both parties? What precise actions led to the fatal outcome? What evidence was attempted to be concealed? What will forensic results ultimately reveal? These questions will be resolved only when investigators complete their work and the judicial system makes its determination. Until then, the Lang Son case remains a mystery with known facts, but unknown motives. The most haunting part of this case is not the crime itself, but the silence around it. A silence created by a closed room, a private meeting, an interrupted life, and arrest, and a cautious investigation. Behind the noise of social media, behind the theories and speculation, lies a quieter truth. 2 lives collided in a way no one fully saw. One ended. One changed forever. Families grieve. Communities question. Investigators proceed carefully. The public watches. And the truth, the complete truth, remains just out of reach. For now. As we conclude this 3-part documentary, we leave the story where it currently stands. A verified homicide. A suspect under investigation. A victim with a complex background. An office that became a crime scene. Digital traces still being analysed. A motive still unrevealed. a case still open. The Lang Son murder mystery is more than a crime story. It is a reminder of the fragile lines between trust and danger, between private decisions and public consequences, between digital relationships and real-world outcomes. It is a story where every answer reveals another question, and it is a story not yet finished. When investigators speak again, when the courts deliver judgment, a fuller picture will emerge. Until then, we honor the truth as it stands, carefully, respectfully, and without stepping beyond what is known.